There are dreams that do not come to comfort you nor to torment you. They come as a doorway, quietly opened by the unconscious, allowing you to see what you have refused to confront in the light of day. In ordinary life, you may appear strong, rational, clear-headed, even telling yourself that you have already moved on. You may delete numbers, block contact, move houses, change habits, pretend they no longer exist. But when night falls and every layer of defense lowers, what appears is precisely what your mind has never fully processed. The irony is this: the one who appears is not the person you miss, but the person you have tried hardest to forget. A narcissus, a shadow you thought you had shut away forever, a face that once drained your energy, a voice that once made you feel small. And then you ask yourself, why are they still showing up in my dreams? Do I still love them? Am I still attached? Or is this a sign of some unbreakable spiritual connection? But Carl Jung said that dreams are not a storage for longing. Dreams are where the parts of the soul that were split off return to be seen. People do not dream about others. People dream about themselves. In the form of symbols, the unconscious believes you are strong enough to face. So when the narcissist walks into your dream, it doesn't mean they are returning. It means the lesson they represent is not finished. The dream does not bring them to you so you can hurt more. The dream brings them so you can face the shadow they once awakened within you. Jung called this the resurgence of the buried shadow, where unspoken wounds and stolen soul fragments return and demand to be reclaimed. And the strange thing is this: every dream speaks not only of the wound, but also of strength, of the process of individuation, of the return of intuition, and of the energy of a soul finding its way back to itself. Therefore, that dream is not the past trying to hold on to you. It is a reminder that you have entered a deeper journey, one the narcissist never had the power to control: your awakening. Part 1. Dreams through Carl Jung. When beautiful and painful memories become the language of the unconscious. Carl Jung once said that dreams are the small door that leads into the most authentic part of the human self. And he built an entire system of research to prove this. From the word association test, where even a 1-second hesitation could betray a repressed content in the unconscious, to dream series analysis, where he observed thousands of recurring dreams to demonstrate that the unconscious never sends a random image, and especially the Red Book, in which Jung himself used the images rising from his unconscious as a living laboratory to observe the archetypes operating within the human psyche. From all of this research, Jung reached an irreversible truth. We may pretend while awake, but the unconscious never pretends. It records every heartbeat, every fear, every tear, every vibration that once opened your soul for the first time, and it records every moment that shattered that soul. In a relationship with a narcissist, the unconscious does not store the cruelty at the end. What it engraves most deeply is the beauty at the beginning. Jung called this stage archetypal inflation, the swelling of an archetypal image, when you no longer see a person but a symbol carved into the deepest layer of your psyche. Before they hurt you, they made you believe you were the chosen one. Before they broke your trust, they built a fairy tale castle out of love. Before they disappeared, they arrived like a prince, stepping out of the dream your unconscious had long yearned for. You may have never been loved the way they loved you in those early days. The gaze that seemed to see through your soul. The promises spoken with fabricated sincerity, but sharp enough to awaken the wounded child inside you. The mornings that made you believe you were the reason they existed. The nights when they held you as if you were the only safe place they trusted. That was not just love. It was a somatic imprint, an engraving on your nervous system, causing your brain to register them as a source of life, of light, of safety. Jung called these experiences living images, imagery so vivid that it sinks deeper into the unconscious than any real-life event. Because they were too beautiful, they also became too painful. When they left, you didn't just lose a person, you lost the version of yourself who once believed that the most beautiful thing in life was real. You lost the starry sky they once painted, lost hope, lost trust, lost direction, lost yourself. Modern psychologists call this a trauma bond, but Jung, long before them, saw a deeper essence and named it more precisely, a torn piece of the soul. One part of you remains in the beautiful memory, while another part is abandoned in the abyss of pain. And when those parts have not yet reunited, the unconscious summons both in your dreams. That is why you still dream of them. But the most important thing Jung wanted the world to understand is this. A narcissist does not possess you through love. They possess you through archetype. Jung said that humans do not love through the human. They love through the image. The narcissist does not enter your life as who they really are. They enter through the image your unconscious has long desired. The savior, the soulmate, the prince, the safe harbor, the one who can finally see you. None of this is them. It is your archetype, activated with perfect precision to capture your heart. When an archetype awakens, you no longer love with your conscious mind. You love with the unconscious. You do not see with your eyes, you see with your wounds, with childhood memories, with the most primordial longing of the soul. This is archetypal possession. When an archetype becomes stronger than the ego and takes control of your emotions, your logic, and your behavior, you idealize them even when they mistreat you. You accept things even you know are unreasonable. You feel that leaving them would cost you a piece of your soul. You think they are the missing half, even as they repeatedly break you. This does not prove you are weak. It proves your archetype is powerful. The archetype triggered by the narcissist belongs to the reunion archetype, the archetype of soul merging, which Jung saw as the deepest longing of humanity. When they love-bombed you, they touched this archetype precisely. That is why you feel, this is home, this is destiny, this is a past life, this is my twin soul. You think you love them, but in truth you are trying to return to the state of wholeness, the archetype awakened within you. And then the day comes when the illusion collapses. When they shift from angel to demon, the archetype also flips. Jung emphasized that any archetype, when activated too intensely, has a light side and a dark side. When the love bombing ends, the archetype of union becomes the archetype of abandonment. In the unconscious, the person who once represented light instantly becomes the representation of shadow. That is why you feel as if you were thrown from heaven into hell overnight. The unconscious cannot bear this abrupt role reversal, so it tries to rebuild the union at all costs, through memory, obsession, dreams, longing, emptiness, desire, and inexplicable pain. This is archetypal possession at its highest intensity. When the unconscious tries to pull you back to complete an image that has become impossible in waking life. And empaths are the ones most easily possessed by this archetype, because they have sensitive nervous systems, strong intuition, thin emotional boundaries, deep longing for connection, and often childhood wounds. When a narcissist touches these layers, the ideal love archetype flares up like fire igniting a room full of gas. Empaths do not love with an ordinary heart, they love with their soul, and that is why they fall harder than anyone else. In dreams, the archetype continues to possess you. Jung analyzed hundreds of patients and found that any archetype still active rises strongest in dreams. Thus, they appear as the one who apologizes, the one who returns, the one standing in the shadow watching you, the one you chase. That is not them, but the archetype still operating. But Jung also offered a solution. You break possession not by forgetting them, but by reclaiming the archetype back into yourself. You do not need to hate them or prove them wrong. You only need to realize one truth powerful enough to free everything. What I saw in you was mine. When you take back the idealized image you projected onto them, they instantly shrink back to their true size, small, distorted, weak, and empty. And the archetype returns to you. And that is the moment you reclaim all your power. That is when possession ends. That is when healing begins. That is when the dreams stop. That is when you look at them and finally ask, why did I ever give my soul to a shadow? Part 2. The mechanism of psychic hoovering. They don't contact you, but their energy still pulls you back. There is a phenomenon that anyone who has ever loved a narcissist understands without needing any explanation. They disappear from your life. They don't call, don't text, don't try to approach you. Sometimes they've already entered a new relationship, even behaving as if they never knew you. Yet somehow, their energy still touches you, pulls you back, makes your heart tighten at strange moments, and they appear in your dreams as if the invisible cord between you two has never been severed. This phenomenon is not ordinary longing or weakness. It is a form of unconscious hoovering, psychic hoovering, where without any text, call, or deliberate act, their energy still finds its way back into your emotional field. Carl Jung described many times in his research that humans connect with each other not only through language and behavior, but also through an emotional energy field, what he called the transference field. That is why he left us this sentence: what you do not possess will continue to possess you. Any part of your soul that has not been reclaimed will automatically become a doorway for the other person's unconscious to enter. In a relationship with a narcissist, this cord is formed most powerfully through the trauma bond, a state in which the nervous system is programmed to believe that the very person causing the pain is the only source of safety. You are trapped in a loop of sweet, bitter, heaven, hell, lifted up, slammed down. And it is this alternation that forces your brain to register them as an emotional reference point. So after they leave, your rational mind may understand that everything is over, but your body still believes its survival is tied to them. The trauma bond is the rope that consciousness cannot cut if the unconscious has not yet seen it. At the same time, your brain has another mechanism: mirror neurons. These are the neural systems that make you feel another person's emotions as if they are happening inside you. Empaths possess this system more strongly than ordinary people, and once you have deeply connected with a narcissist, your body has learned how to tune into their state, their emptiness, their insecurity, their need for validation, even their waves of despair. That is why there are days when you are at peace and suddenly you miss them, feel sad for no reason. A sense of loss rises like a wave, or you dream of them coming back to you. It is not memory returning, it is your reflective nervous system picking up signals from an unconscious bond that hasn't been closed. On a deeper level, Jung said that psychic hoovering does not occur because the other person is actively pulling you in. It happens because there is still a part of you that belongs to them, which you have not yet given back to the darkness. In the Red Book, Jung describes that when we do not process a psychological image or wound, it continues to move like a living entity in the unconscious, trying in every way to lay itself out in front of us through dreams, memories, or repeated emotional patterns. You think you've left, but your unconscious still holds their energetic copy. And as Jung said, whatever you refuse to confront will become your fate. That is why the dreams appear, not to torment you, but to force you to look at what is holding power inside. Psychic hoovering, in essence, is not them pulling you in, but you being pulled back by the parts of yourself that have not yet been seen. The fear of abandonment, the longing to be loved in the way they once brought, the questions that never had answers, the unfinished promises, the glimmers of hope you don't want to admit were never real. The narcissist does not appear in your mind through love, they appear through the emptiness inside you. Wherever there is emptiness, there is a line of connection. That is why psychic hoovering operates even when they are silent. They don't need to call, don't need to text, don't need to come find you. It is your own unclaimed psychological parts that are acting as an open doorway. And only when you consciously step into the process Jung called individuation, the process of reclaiming everything you once projected onto them, will this cord finally snap. You do not need to fight them, do not need to hate them, do not need to prove them wrong. You only need to dare say to yourself, everything I once saw in you was mine. The moment you take back the idealized image, the beautiful energy, the hope, the innocence, the fear, and the shadow that was triggered, psychic hoovering ends. You no longer reflect them, the mirror neurons stop tuning into them, the trauma bond dissolves, The dreams vanish as if they never existed, and finally you no longer feel pulled, because there is no emptiness left in you for them to cling to. Part 3. The dream is not about them. It is about the part of you that was split when you loved them. What many people never understand, and what confuses them the most, is this truth. In dreams, you never actually meet them. You only meet the part of you that was torn apart while being with them. Jung called this phenomenon psyche splitting, the splitting of the psyche that occurs when a person experiences extreme love and extreme pain from the same source. In a normal relationship, your mind only stores memories at a moderate emotional level, but with a narcissist you go through two violently opposing poles, the peak of idealization and the abyss of destruction. These two poles create two different versions of you. And when those two versions cannot be reconciled, the dream will summon them, so you are forced to face them. There was a you who once believed in movie-like love because they made you believe it. There was a you who once felt beautiful, lovable enough because they shone a light on you in a way no one ever had. But there was also a you who shattered without understanding why. A you who stayed up at night blaming yourself, a you who begged for the truth but received nothing but frozen silence. A you who doubted your own worth, a you abandoned in a dark room of confusion, not even having time to understand what had happened. When you left, you carried both of these versions, but you only accepted one. You wanted to throw away the weak, naive version who trusted the wrong person. You wanted to keep the strong, clear, rational version, but Jung said that the part you tried to reject is the part that will appear in your dreams, because the unconscious always seeks restoration, unity, the re-establishment of the whole self. That is why the figure of the narcissist in your dreams is actually just a carrier, a representative of the piece of your soul that was left behind in the past. You are not dreaming of them, you are dreaming of the fragment of you that is still stuck in that memory. You are not clinging to them, you are clinging to the version of yourself who loved them. You are not hurting because they came back. You are hurting because the part of you that was wounded wants to be seen by you. And this is the most important point. The unconscious does not bring them back to replay the love story. The unconscious brings them back to demand what belongs to you. Because in every dream, when you see them smiling, leaving, returning, staying silent, or accusing you, all of it is symbolic language for an emotional current still left unfinished. Regret that was never voiced, confusion that was never decoded, pain that was never acknowledged, separation that was never truly completed. Jung called this the process of soul retrieval, when your fragments return so that you can reintegrate them. The dream is not trying to pull you back into the past. It wants you to look at the parts that were split so you can become a more whole being. And when you understand this, you will realize that their presence in your dreams is not an invitation to go back, it is an invitation to free yourself. Part 4, 7. Deeper dreams about the narcissist. There is a truth very few people dare to face. Dreams about the narcissist are not simply repeated memories, nor are they proof that you still love them or are still attached. Dreams are the language of the unconscious, and the unconscious only calls up what it believes you are strong enough to confront. Therefore, when their image walks into your dream, whether as the remorseful one, the pursuer, the ex-lover now happy with someone new, or a silent figure standing in the distance, all of it is symbolic of the healing process your soul is moving through. Jung said the unconscious does not play with meaningless images. It chooses symbols that strike hardest at the emotions that were once distorted. And for you, the face of the narcissist is exactly that symbol, because they are the doorway holding both the two beautiful memories and the two deep wounds. What you dream of is never truly them. It is you inside that memory. In dreams, some people see the narcissist come back to apologize. Their appearance often carries soft eyes, a familiar voice, sometimes the remorse you once hoped for 1,000 times but never received in waking life. This is not the resurrection of love. It is a message from the inner child, the child within you who has never been healed through genuine acknowledgement. Through genuine acknowledgement, the apology dream is how the unconscious temporarily mends the sense of incompleteness. closing a chapter that real life could never close. It is not about them returning. It is about the part of you that needs closure in order to keep going. Others dream of themselves going back to the narcissist, dreaming of old arms around them, borrowed safety, the moment you choose them again as if no breakup ever happened. This leaves you waking up in shame, afraid that you are still weak, still secretly wanting them back. But Jung saw something else. That dream is the return of the fawning response, the survival mechanism that once ruled you when you loved them. In the dream, the unconscious replays that pattern, not to pull you backward, but so you can see it so clearly that you will never fall into it again. That dream does not push you back. It pushes you out of the illusion by letting you witness the surrender you once mistook for love. Then come the dreams where you are being chased by them. You run, you gasp. You feel terrified as if they are right behind you, trying to drag you back into the old trap. When you wake, your heart pounds, and you wonder why they still scare you, even after you've left. But in Jungian analysis, this is the confrontation between consciousness and the shadow, the inner darkness that they once activated in you. They represent your fear of being unsafe, the part of you that believed you were small, the helplessness that had been pushed to the extreme. The dream of running is not about being afraid of them. You are running from the version of yourself that was trapped in that fear. The unconscious calls up this dream when you are becoming strong, because only the strong can face their own shadow. Many empaths have even more painful dreams. They see themselves saving the narcissist. In the dream, they see the narcissist collapse, wounded, lonely, disappointed, or harmed by others. And you run in to save them. This is not madness. It is the savior archetype of the empath, the healer archetype that you were stuck in during the relationship. That dream does not encourage you to save anyone. It exposes the exhaustion of the part of your soul that tried to heal the wrong person. When you save them in the dream, the unconscious is showing you the role you must lay down in order to come back to yourself. You are not their savior, never were, and never will be. And this dream is the final testimony. Another type of dream is brutally sharp. You see them happy with someone new. They laugh, they love. They live the life they once promised you but now give to another. Jung called this the dream of the wounded ego, where your injured ego speaks, where the pain of being replaced demands to be seen. The new person in the dream is not the real new partner. They are a symbol of the fact that you are still doubting your worth. That dream is not punishing you. It makes you face the truth that you loved an illusion, and that illusion is always ready to change faces. This is the dream that pulls you out of the fantasy that the narcissist ever truly loved you. But then there is another kind of dream, strangely gentle, unexpectedly peaceful. You see them from a distance, but feel nothing. They are there, you recognize them, but your heart does not move, does not ache, does not get dragged back into any memory. You stand as an observer, not wanting to go near, and not feeling threatened either. This is the clearest sign of detachment, a spiritual state in which the energetic link between you and them has been severed. The unconscious uses this dream to show you that you are entering a new phase of healing, the phase where you see them as a chapter, not as destiny. And finally comes the dream that is the unconscious's most declarative statement. The dream where they stand in the dark, silently watching you. They do not speak, do not apologize, do not run toward you, do not threaten, do not demand. They just stand there, like a shadow that light can no longer touch. In the dream, you realize they no longer have any influence over you, and notably, they themselves do not even try. This is the dream of the individuation seal, the moment when the unconscious closes the entire energetic doorway that once connected you. They no longer appear as an invitation, only as a period at the end of a sentence. When you string these 7 types of dreams together, you will see they are not 7 separate stories, but one complete healing process. It begins with the craving for closure, moves through confronting old patterns, releasing fear, stepping out of the savior role, healing the wounded ego, entering detachment, and finally sealing the soul. The dreams are not about them, they are about the journey you are on, the journey of returning to yourself after having loved the wrong person. Those dreams are not tying you to them, they are giving you back to you. Part 5. Why do dreams become the most intense after no contact? There is a paradox almost every empath goes through, but very few understand. After you choose no contact, after you block them, stop responding, withdraw your energy, withdraw your emotions, withdraw your presence from their life, your mind should be calm, light, free from all chaos. But what actually happens is the exact opposite. The dreams about them become more intense, more vivid, more real, more painful, even more haunting than when you were still deeply in love with them. And after this makes many people think they are regressing, becoming weak, failing. In truth, Jung would say it is a sign that you are on the right path and very close to liberation. To understand this, you have to look at the nature of no contact. It is not just cutting contact, it is stripping away the last remaining stage on which they can perform inside your mind. When you cut contact on the outside, the unconscious is forced to open the inner door, the place where all emotions, memories, wounds, expectations, nervous system responses, idealized images, confusion, and unanswered questions are stored. While you are still interacting with them in real life, the unconscious could not do its work, because you were constantly being pulled into their reality, constantly reacting to their behavior, constantly spinning inside scenarios they created. When you go no contact, the unconscious immediately changes modes, from reacting to processing. And processing always begins by bringing to the surface everything that has been buried the deepest. Your dreams become intense because the unconscious finally has space to speak. It speaks in images, in symbols, in different versions of them in your dreams, because that is the only language the unconscious can use. Those dreams are not their return, they are your return. The version of you that was split off from the ego when you loved them. Dreams become strongest after no contact, because at this point there is nothing left to distract the healing energy. The moment you cut them off in the outer world is also the moment the unconscious opens the storage room and starts giving back to you the energy fragments that have been held for far too long. But giving back is not a gentle process. It is like excavating a geological layer that has been buried for years. Each dream is an old layer of dust brought into the light. Each dream is a fragment of memory stuck in the body that now has to surface to be released. The more years you were distorted, suppressed, deceived, idealized, and manipulated, the more memories were shoved to the bottom. And now, no contact is the key that opens the entire unconscious, so these emotional sediment layers can rise one last time before they dissolve forever. This is why dreams often become the most brutal, right when you think you've already escaped, because you are escaping. But escaping does not mean running away. Escaping means reclaiming. And to reclaim the unconscious has to lead you back to the places where you once lost yourself. Dreams become strongest after no contact, because this is the stage where the unconscious starts cleaning up the deepest wounds. The wounds your conscious mind never dared to touch while you were still in the relationship. When you loved them, you lived in survival mode. How to keep them pleased, how to avoid storms, how to be loved, how not to be abandoned. In that mode, the unconscious shuts down the most painful emotions so you can continue to endure. But when you go no contact, the unconscious reopens every drawer it once locked. And what it finds in those drawers becomes the raw material that creates the most intense dreams. Jung said that the collapse of an illusion always happens in the unconscious before it happens in consciousness. The more intense the dream, the faster the illusion is collapsing. The stronger the dream, the closer the energetic separation is to completion. The more real, more painful, more dense the dream, the more it proves the unconscious is making its final adjustments to release what you once held on to so tightly. Paradoxically, the ferocity of the dreams is a sign of strength, not weakness. You are strong enough that the unconscious now trusts you, are ready to face everything that once shattered you. And dreams are strongest after no contact, because this is when the last protective wall of the relationship falls apart. As long as you still talk to them, even a little, your mind still clings to hope, clings to a beautiful version of them, clings to a past that was glittered over with love bombing, clings to the poisonous what-if questions. When you go no contact, that wall of hope collapses. And when that wall collapses, the unconscious must show you the truth you never truly faced. You did not lose that person. You lost the version you thought they were. And that is when dreams begin to speak. Dreams also become strongest after no contact because your nervous system is rebuilding itself. During your time with them, your nervous system was conditioned to wait for signals from them. Messages, tone of voice, facial expressions, sudden changes, cycles of love bombing followed by silence. Your brain functioned like a hypervigilant machine. When no contact begins, your brain has to relearn something it had forgotten, that freedom is normal, not a threat. Vision is normal, not a threat. But to restore that normalcy, it has to release all the leftover stress hormones, all memories connected to them, all emotions that were locked down. The brain cannot erase memories if it has not processed them. And processing happens in dreams, where the nervous system is no longer interrupted by the noise of rational thought. Finally, dreams become the most powerful after no contact, because this is the moment your soul is reclaiming energetic sovereignty. A narcissist never truly leaves, as long as you still react to them, still remember them, still hate them, still hurt because of them. They only truly disappear when your soul closes every door that was once opened in the wrong direction. But before the soul can close those doors, the unconscious always does one last thing. It brings up all the energy fragments that were lost, forgotten, or stolen, so you can take them back. And that reclamation process is always intense, always chaotic, always blazing, because it is the final great cleansing. Just as the biggest storm often happens right before the sky clears, the most violent dreams often come right before your soul closes its door to them forever. So when your dreams grow stronger after no contact, don't be afraid. Don't think you're back at square one. Don't blame yourself. Don't believe you are weak. Those dreams are not the rebirth of the relationship. They are the last words of a connection that has already died. They are not pulling you back. They are setting you free. They are not binding you. They are unlocking you. They are not trying to keep you. They are handing you back to yourself. And one day, after the unconscious has completed this process, you will wake up and realize, I slept and didn't see them anymore. And that is when you are truly free. Part 6. Decoding and ending the dream. Cyclo. When you become the one who illuminates your own unconscious. Ending a cycle of dreams about the narcissist is not about forcing yourself to forget, nor is it about fighting against the images that show up at night. Dreams do not end through force. Dreams end through understanding. And what Jung wanted us to see clearly is this. Dreams never appear to torment you. They appear to give back the parts of your soul that were stolen, distorted, or abandoned in that relationship. When you understand this, you stop running away from the dream and begin to step into the position of the observer, the one who is no longer dragged into blind emotional currents, but can see the unconscious symbols trying to speak to them. Decoding dreams is not about trying to guess what the narcissist is thinking, how they are living now, or whether the universe is trying to bring you back together. The dream is never about them, it is about you. Every image of them in the dream is a symbol of a part of you that has not been healed, a memory that has not been closed, a pain that has not yet been named, a soul fragment that has not been brought back to the center. When you dare to look into the dream and ask, what part of me does this image represent? You are reversing the entire process, from being controlled by the dream to being the one who decodes yourself. From that moment, the power returns to you, because the unconscious always obeys the one who is willing to listen to it. The way to end the dream cycle begins with dialogue. Jung called this active imagination, where you are not swallowed by the dream, but you step back into it and ask, what are you trying to teach me? When you do this, the unconscious no longer needs to scream in order to be heard. It shifts into a whisper. It stops shaking you with violent scenes and begins to offer you gentler, more understandable, less frightening symbols. This is the moment when the dream cycle starts to dissolve. One of the most powerful ways to end the dream cycle is to take the dream out of your head and put it onto paper. Writing down the dream is not to preserve it, but to break the hypnosis. When the dream is inside your head, it has power. When it lies on the page, you are the one in charge. Put every detail down, every feeling down, every line of dialogue down, and ask yourself, where have I felt this before in real life? Which wound is trying to speak to me? The moment you ask that question, the dream loses its haunting quality. It is no longer a wave crashing over you, it becomes a map. And when the dream turns into a map, your mind no longer fears it. But the strongest, deepest, most Jungian act of all is the ritual of returning the energy. Not magic, not vague spirituality, but a symbolic action so the unconscious understands that I am ready to end this loop. You close your eyes and picture them standing in front of you. Not the real person, but the image that represents all the dreams that have haunted you. Then you hand back everything that no longer belongs to you. The beautiful memories, the illusions, the hopes, the questions, the promises, the wounded ego. You give it back without hatred. And as you do that, you say to the unconscious, I return to you what is yours. I take back what is mine. The unconscious understands symbolic language. It understands that you are done. And from that point, it automatically closes the final door between you and them. What many people don't know is this: the most intense dream is often the one right before the cycle ends, because the unconscious, before closing the file, always brings up the last layer, the deepest, the most painful, the truest. But if you wake up that morning and instead of panicking, you whisper, this is the last piece, the dream will not return, because the unconscious does not send messages to the one who is running away. It sends messages to the one who is ready to listen. When the dreams stop, you may think you've fallen into a void, but it is not a void. It is the lightness you've been seeking all along. It is the day their image no longer appears in your sleep like a shadow. It is the day the unconscious no longer needs to call back the lost fragments of your soul from the past. It is the day when dreams no longer have any job to do with you. And the beautiful thing is, when the dreams stop, you almost don't notice at first. One morning, you wake up in a strange peace and need a few seconds to realize, last night I slept and didn't see them. That is the moment you know you have reclaimed full inner sovereignty. No one ends dreams by sheer force. Dreams end when you become the person who no longer needs to dream in order to understand what the unconscious was trying to say. Dreams are the past coming back one last time to lead you out. And when you step out, they close the door gently, as if it was never opened. An ending without noise, without drama, without tears. Only your soul finally returning to where it was always meant to be. Part 7. The disappearance of the dreams, when the unconscious returns your power to you. There is a moment in the healing journey that you are not prepared for, no one warns you about, and you don't even realize it right when it happens. The moment you wake up one morning and realize you did not dream about them. Not because you forced yourself to forget, not because you resisted, but because you truly no longer need to see them, no longer need to replay the old story, no longer need to restage the shattered scenes in your unconscious. And the strangest part is, you do not feel overjoyed, nor sad, nor panicked. You just feel a kind of silence. A silence completely different from the icy emptiness that once tortured you endlessly. This is not the silence of loss. This is the silence of release. Jung called this moment the withdrawal of projections. It does not happen on the day you leave them, nor on the day you realize they are narcissists, nor on the day you promise yourself never to go back. It happens at the exact point when your unconscious concludes that you are strong enough to stand on your own without having to recreate that shadowy figure in your dreams anymore. The unconscious is always more honest than consciousness, and when it stops calling their name in your sleep, it means that the psychological structure once dominated by them has begun to withdraw from you. You no longer run down endless hallways trying to catch up with them. You no longer see them come back with a smile, an apology, or a look that pulls your heart back into the danger zone. And most notably, you no longer feel that stabbing pain when you think about the day they left, The feeling that once pierced straight through your chest as if your body and soul collapsed with one sudden pull of fate's hand now turns into a distant echo, stripped of its power. But the dreams do not disappear by dying. They dissolve, like fog slowly thinning under sunlight. And when their figure dissolves, the first thing that appears is not a new person nor a new hope, but you, your true self, the part you lost when you were love-bombed, when you were trauma-bonded, when you were dragged into archetypal possession. The disappearance of the dreams is not a sign that you are fully healed. It is a sign that the process of healing has begun. During this phase, your mind will fall into a very strange state. One part knows they are gone, but another part is observing this newly born quietness as something sacred. You find that you no longer need to imagine them coming back to soothe the wound, no longer need to imagine why they left, no longer construct what-if scenarios in your head, and you no longer ask the most haunting question, if I had behaved differently back then, would things have changed? The question that once tormented you to exhaustion now becomes a torn, crumpled scrap of paper that the unconscious no longer wishes to pick up. The dreams disappear because your unconscious has finally understood one truth. You no longer need them in order to exist. The nervous system that once relied on their presence or absence is now re-establishing a new equilibrium. The jolts in the middle of the night, the moments when your heart suddenly clenched, the seconds when you felt as if your soul was being tugged from behind by someone, all of these begin to fade without you even noticing. No, the strange thing is, before, when they didn't appear in your dreams, you felt empty, like a body that had become accustomed to pain, suddenly losing it, and the mind didn't know what to do with that absence. But this time is different. This time, the absence is no longer frightening. It is like breaking an addiction. When the final craving disappears, you don't feel deprived. You feel free. Jung once wrote that the unconscious never takes anything away before a person is ready to let it go. The dreams about the narcissist once had a role. They forced you to look at the truth, forced you to confront the part of your soul that had been split, forced you to explore regions of pain you never touched while awake. But the dreams also know when to leave. The unconscious never prolongs obsession beyond the point where it still has transformative value. What makes the disappearance of the dream sacred is its subtlety. You don't hear a door slam shut. There is no grand moment announcing an ending, no shattering sound, no wail, no tears, no dramatic sign at all. It just dissolves. And in that dissolving, you sense a new kind of lightness, a lightness not born of joy, but of reclaimed power, like the first breath you take when you break the surface after being underwater in the dark for far too long. You know you've stepped into a new phase when you realize that your mind no longer reaches for them in moments of weakness, when you no longer write unsent messages, when you no longer pause to analyze whether they might be thinking about you, when you no longer replay the old story to search for clues about what happened, when you no longer revisit old photos, or if you happen to see them, you only feel a strange calm, no longer being pulled into the old emotional vortex. It is the moment you don't realize you've moved on, until you look back and see how far the darkness has receded. The dreams disappear to make room for something new, the return of the self that was once split. When they are no longer in your dreams, you have not only escaped them, you have escaped the version of yourself that they once possessed. And that is the real liberation. Not when you leave them, not when they leave you, but when they leave your unconscious. Part 8. The rebirth of the self. When dreams return to serve you, there is a strange truth that very few people talk about. When the dreams about the narcissist disappear, dreams themselves do not vanish. They simply change their subject. The unconscious does not leave the night empty. It always continues its work. But this time, it no longer takes you back to old, torn apart moments. It begins to bring you back closer to yourself. This is exactly the stage Jung called the rebirth of the ego. When the unconscious, after reclaiming the energy that had been trapped in another person, begins to rebuild your true shape. This is the stage where dreams no longer act as a painful mirror reflecting old wounds, but become a subtle tool helping you reconstruct the inner structure that was once shattered by them. And the first sign that you are entering this stage is not joy, not excitement, but a strange feeling of strangeness that makes you both surprised and cautious. You start dreaming again, but this time they are not in your dreams. No more hands pulling you back, no more piercing gazes, no more scenes of you running through an endless maze trying to find someone who never stays still. Instead, you see yourself moving through spaces you have never entered in waking life. Jung once said that when a person enters the phase of rebirth, the symbols in their dreams change. They shift from chaotic scenes to constructive images. A house, a staircase, a key, a road, a bridge, clear water, a bright room. This is not random. Each image is an unconscious brick laid down to rebuild the ego that was once split apart. And the interesting thing is, the unconscious always builds the house before the conscious mind knows it is building. You begin to dream of yourself standing in front of a strange house. In the dream, you do not feel afraid. You only feel surprised, as if this is a place you have never been to, yet your unconscious has known it for a long time. The house is a symbol of the self. When the unconscious starts bringing you back to this image, it means your inner system is being restructured, more orderly, clearer, safer. Before, your dreams were usually dreams of losing control. You run, you search, you fear, you scream in silence, you reach for hands that never hold back. But now, you simply stand there and observe. No rushing, no panic, no trying to save anyone, no trying to hold on to anyone. You simply exist in that new space. That is the first sign of a person no longer manipulated by an external archetype. Then the dream begins to lead you deeper into the house. Some rooms are dark, some are brightly lit, some are empty, some are full of strange objects. Jung said each room represents a part of the soul, parts you have forgotten, parts you have buried, parts you have rejected, and parts you have never dared to love. When the unconscious leads you into these rooms, it means you are gradually returning to wholeness. It means you are gradually returning to wholeness, what Jung saw as the ultimate goal of human life. The dream now no longer feels like being chased. You begin to walk with a calm step. You open doors without fearing what might be waiting behind them. This is the clearest symbol of rebirth. You are no longer fighting the darkness. You are in dialogue with it. And in that dialogue, you realize the darkness no longer has the narcissist's face. It only carries the face of the parts of you that you were once afraid to face. The face of you with which you are now afraid to face. And the most beautiful thing happens when the dream begins to guide you into open spaces. You dream of yourself standing in front of a bridge. You don't know where it leads, but you feel a strong urge to cross it. In the language of the unconscious, the bridge is a symbol of transformation. Jung wrote that if a bridge appears in a dream, it is the moment your soul is crossing an inner boundary you previously did not dare to step over. And when you cross that bridge, you step into a state you once only read about in books, but had never truly felt with your heart. Self-mastery. The dream now no longer steers you toward the past person. It no longer drags you back to beautiful yet tormenting memories. It no longer forces you to chase a figure that never stops. It puts you at the center. No longer a satellite revolving around pain. In the unconscious, you start walking alone, but not in loneliness, in freedom. Sometimes the dream introduces you to strange figures: a teacher, a child, a woman in a cloak, an animal you've never seen before, a silent man standing by a riverbank. These figures are not real people. They are parts of you given form so they can speak. Jung called them autonomous figures, autonomous personalities. When they appear, they do not speak for anyone else. They speak for your soul. One night, you dream of walking in a forest, light filtering through the leaves, casting patches of light and shadow on the ground. You are not afraid. You are not looking for a way out. You just walk. Then you see a child sitting by a stream. It turns to look at you, with eyes so deep and familiar it feels unbelievable. Jung called this image the child archetype. the inner child. When the child appears in a dream, it is a sign that you are returning to the most intact version of yourself, the part that was never manipulated, never trampled, never diminished. You look at the child and realize that what you lost was not them, but yourself before you met them. The child does not need to say anything. It only needs to be there as a reminder that you are coming home. And when you bend down and take its hand, the scenery changes. The clear stream begins to flow stronger, the trees grow greener, the light becomes warmer. This is not a random dream. This is the unconscious guiding you back to your original state, where every wound can be healed from the root. And then there are nights when you dream of light, not vague light or blinding light, but a gentle, steady light, like a lamp placed in the corner of a room. Jung described this light as a symbol of self-awarenessness, consciousness. It appears when your mind starts reconciling the opposing parts that once tore you in two, the part that wants to love and the part that fears love, the strong part and the emotional part, the rational part and the emotional part. When this light appears in dreams, it means your unconscious is doing what the narcissist never wanted you to do, integrating the parts that have been split. The dream gradually becomes a safe place, a place where you are no longer dragged into the past. Before, when you went to sleep, you braced yourself for a nightly escape in the unconscious. Now, when you sleep, you step into a journey of returning to your own center. This is not loud, not flashy, not something that jolts you awake with a racing heart. It comes quietly, like an underground stream, slowly drawing poison out of your body without you realizing it, until the air becomes clear. Jung once said, "Dreams do not heal you through action, but by returning to you the parts of yourself that were once forgotten." And indeed, the new dreams do not bring someone else to you, they bring you to yourself, a version you lost when you tried to be good enough, obedient enough, tolerant enough to be loved by the narcissist. Now, your dreams begin to place you in situations you once feared facing in real life. You stand in front of someone and say no. You close the door on people who want to use you. You walk out of a room when the energy doesn't feel right. You look someone in the eye and say the truth you once never dared to say. This is not wishful thinking, not fantasy. This is the unconscious rehearsing you before you act it out in waking life. Jung called these rehearsal dreams, dreams that train the new ego. In these dreams, you do not tremble. You don't apologize. You don't over-explain. You don't shrink yourself. You don't try to make anyone comfortable. You stand tall. You speak clearly. And strangely enough, in the dream, no one reacts with rage or manipulation. You realize that your fear of conflict in the past didn't come from others. It came from the part of you that once believed you weren't worthy enough to protect yourself. When that part is healed, the dream reflects the shift. And then one night, the dream brings you in front of a mirror. But unlike the old dreams, you no longer see them standing behind you, no longer see the version of you they damaged, no longer see the fearful eyes. You see only yourself, whole, clear, peaceful. The mirror in the dream now is not just a reflective surface, it is a symbol of recognition. You finally see you, the one who survived, the one who got back up, the one who didn't break. And in that moment, the unconscious sends you the final message of the rebirth stage. You don't need anyone to be yourself. The new dream is the dream of a soul that has stepped out of the possession field of the old archetype and is walking into the freedom of its own being. No more panic, no more clinging, no more orbiting around the shadow of the past. Dreams become the place where you return to what you were before the world made you doubt your worth. And from here on, dreams are no longer a battlefield. They become a home. No longer the place where you are hunted. They are the place where you are guided. It's no longer the place where you lose yourself. They are the place where you find yourself. It's no longer the place where you face them. They are the place where you meet you again. This is the most beautiful stage because it is not loud, not boastful, not full of promises. It simply brings you back to your life, a life that no one has the right to step in unless they are invited. Part 9. When the archetype collapses, the truth about them emerges in your life. Something quiet happens in your soul right after the rebirth phase. The image of that person, once radiant, once projected onto as a symbol, so beautiful your heart could hardly bear it, begins to crack. Not with a loud shatter, not with the explosive pain of the days they left, but with a subtle, delicate fracture, like when you wipe a foggy mirror and realize what you used to see was not reality, but the layer of dust, made of your own expectations and longings that you had placed onto them. This is the moment Jung called the collapse of the projected archetype. It does not happen in the early stages of the breakup, nor in the middle of your obsession or agony. It only happens when you have reclaimed the life energy that was once trapped in them, when your own light begins to shine back onto the face you previously saw only through darkness. What makes this stage so astonishing is this: for the first time, you see them not through pain, not through hope, not through the fear of losing them, but through awareness. A smooth yet razor-sharp awareness that touches a truth you never dared to name. They are far smaller than the image your heart once built of them. Before, you couldn't see that smallness because the archetype stood between you. The archetype of ideal love, of the twin soul, of the savior, images your unconscious longed for so intensely that you could no longer see their actual humanity. In Jungian psychology, this is very normal. Anyone who triggers your unconscious strongly enough becomes a screen, hiding who they truly are. You fall in love with the image of what you lack, not with the person standing in front of you. But when the archetype collapses, everything changes. You look back and realize that the behaviors that once hurt you so much you could hardly breathe, the sudden coldness, the cruelty of their turning away, the emotional vacancy in their eyes, no longer hold the same power. Not because you forgot, but because you understand. And when you understand, you free yourself from the last spell. You begin to see clearly a truth you once refused to face. They are not as deep as you thought, not mysterious, not special, not sacred, not dangerous in the way you imagined. They are just a person, a human being imprisoned in their own shadow, a person who cannot truly love, a person who cannot see themselves. Before, you believed their coldness was strength, but now, from where you stand, having walked through darkness and into light, you see it is only emotional numbness. Before, you believed their disappearances meant they were a free, untamable soul. Now you see it is only the avoidance of an ego that doesn't know who it is without someone to manipulate. Before, you believed their early love was rare. Now you see, it was just the same script they run with everyone, not something uniquely reserved for you. When the archetype collapses, the color of your memories changes too. You no longer remember them with the same piercing pain, but with understanding. You see that what you called beautiful in them was actually a reflection of what you longed for. You are the one who loves deeply, so you assumed they were deep. You are the one who is loyal, so you assumed they were loyal. You are the one who knows how to sacrifice, so you mistook that early closeness for sincerity. But the truth is, you were only ever seeing yourself. Jung once said that when a projection dissolves, people fall into one of two states: either despair over losing the illusion, or rising up because they have found themselves again. You belong to the second group. Because for the first time, you are not losing them, you are losing the illusion. And when the illusion falls away, you realize that what you've been protecting all this time was not love, but the fear of losing the most beautiful part of yourself. In this stage, you begin to see clearly the things that were once blurry. Their silence was not depth, it was a weapon. Their mystery was not magnetism, it was emptiness. Their sudden shifts were not just their temperament, they were tactics. Their charm was not love, it was bait. Their withdrawal was not fate, it was a habit of dodging responsibility. Their cruelty was not power, it was an inability to truly connect. For the first time, you see the person as they are, no longer wrapped in the light you had projected onto them. No more smokescreen of love bombing, no more magic of hormones and nervous system overload, no more spiritual costume you once dressed them in. And this does not make you angrier, it makes you awake. Not awake in the sense of revolt, but awake in the sense of finally waking up. You realize that their allure never came from who they truly were, but from the emptiness inside you. When that emptiness is filled with light and awareness, they fade. You no longer have to force yourself to forget them, because there is nothing left to hold on to. You no longer have to rip them out of your mind, because the image has already peeled away on its own, like old skin shedding off a body that has outgrown it. In this process, you also begin to see a truth you once couldn't bear to admit. They never really grew up. You suffered for them, but they do not know how to suffer. You lost sleep over them, but they do not know what loss is. You try to understand them, but they never try to understand themselves. And that is what jolts you fully awake. You gave your heart to a soul not yet mature enough to hold it. When the archetype collapses, you no longer ask them why. You turn the question toward yourself. Why did I believe they had something they never actually had? And when you can answer that, you step into what Jung called the integration phase. This is when you look straight at the hole that made you vulnerable, not to blame yourself, but to understand yourself. And then something strange happens. You no longer feel angry with them. No more blame, no more resentment, no more hope, no more waiting. Your feelings become neutral, not hatred, not love, just no longer relevant. Jung called this state soul neutrality, a form of deep inner release. When you reach this state, you understand the truth many people spend a lifetime to grasp. You were never truly possessed by them. You were possessed by the image you placed on them. And when that image dissolves, freedom begins. Not freedom from them, but freedom from the version of yourself that was swallowed whole in that love. Part 10. Restoration. When you wake up as a soul returned to itself. One morning, no one knows exactly which day, no signals beforehand, no milestone or special moment, you open your eyes and realize something utterly strange. You have been restored. Not restored in the sense of going back to the past, not restored in the sense of reverting to who you used to be, but restored in Jung's deepest sense, a return to the primordial self, the part of your soul that was never twisted, never manipulated, never distorted by the fear of abandonment or the hunger to be loved to the point of blindness. Before, you lived in a constant sense of fragmentation. One part of you reaching toward them, one part toward the pain, one part running away, one part clinging to the beautiful memories, one part hating them, one part wanting them back. You existed as a soul broken into many pieces, exactly what Jung described as psychic fragmentation. But on that morning, when you open your eyes and take your first breath, you realize you are no longer pulled by any outside force. No more invisible cords, no more strange gravitational pull. No more echo in the unconscious. No more nightly dreams calling you back. No more feeling of someone standing behind your shoulder. No more automatic vigilance every time your phone pings. Your mind is empty, but not empty in the sense of loss. Empty in the sense of freedom. This is the moment Jung would say the ego has passed through the darkness and stepped into the light of completed consciousness. A light that is not blinding, not noisy, not dramatic. It is like sunlight pouring gently in the early morning, so peaceful it feels almost sacred. You are not overwhelmed. You do not burst into tears. You simply feel a fullness you have not touched in a very, very long time. In this phase, a very particular psychological phenomenon occurs. The space that once belonged to them slowly gets filled by you. The things you once sought in them, warmth, being seen, appreciation, safety, connection, begin to arise from where they should have come from all along, within you. You no longer run around seeking validation. You no longer need someone to explain why they left. You no longer need closure. You no longer need answers. The questions that once haunted you now feel like tiny specks of dust, stripped of meaning. The strange thing is, you no longer feel like you lost them. You feel like you came back. Back to your breath, back to your intuition, back to your body, back to eyes that see life without a veil of panic, back to the sense of worthiness that comes from knowing your value, back to energy that is no longer siphoned by anyone. This is the state of a soul that has stepped out of the possession field of the archetype, the state Jung called individuation. Not independence in the cold or defiant sense, but independence in the sense that you are no longer ruled by any unconscious force. You are not dragged into memories, not run by old patterns, not driven by fear, not pushed by unattended wounds, not blinded by fantasy. You stand in the center of your being, a place only souls who have walked through real darkness ever reach. Some people describe this moment as a rebirth, but it is not the rebirth you once imagined. Not blazing, not spectacular, not grand. It is a rebirth as soft as the sound of paper opening, like hearing your own voice for the first time after years of being drowned out by the noise of pain, like touching water and realizing it no longer carries the freezing shock of old memories, but the gentle warmth of the present. You begin to notice the smallest changes. The way you step out of your home feels lighter. The way you breathe deeply without your heart tightening. The way you sleep without armor. The way you look at others without constantly wondering how they might hurt you. The way you laugh without feeling something pulling you back. These don't arrive in a single day. They arrive as tiny ripples. Each moment you allow yourself to live without tying your entire existence to someone who triggered your deepest wounds. In this restoration phase, you begin to remember something crucial. You existed before them. You had beautiful parts they never saw. You had dreams they never understood. You had a whole unbroken heart before placing it in the hands of someone who didn't know how to care for it. And now, after passing through the darkness, you realize something even bigger. You are not just returning to your old self, you are returning as an evolved self. You are returning as an evolved self. You are no longer naive as before, but you are not bitter. You no longer indulge in blind romanticism, but you are not cynical. You no longer trust easily, but you do not lock your heart. You no longer tolerate everything unconditionally, but you are not cold. You become the kind of person Jung called whole. When you are whole, you are no longer pulled toward those whose wounds are unprocessed. When you are whole, you are no longer drawn into people who live on emotional drama. When you are whole, you are no longer blinded by the illusion of love. When you are whole, you no longer need anyone to save you from yourself. And most importantly, when you are whole, no narcissist can ever enter your psychological structure again. Restoration is the end of the toxic loop, but it is also the beginning of something entirely different. Conscious choice. You begin to choose people based on energy, not on emptiness. You choose someone not because they make you feel loved, but because you want to love from a place that is already full. You let someone into your life not to soothe your fear of abandonment, but because their energy does not invade the peace you have built. At that point, you no longer love in order to become whole. You love from wholeness. And the most beautiful part is, you begin to look back at your journey not as a string of failures, but as an evolutionary process your soul had to go through to become who you are now. You no longer ask, why did this happen to me? But begin to ask, if it hadn't happened, would I be this strong? In the restoration phase, you do not rush into new love. You move toward yourself, not because you are afraid to love, but because you now know how deadly the wrong kind of love can be for a soul. You no longer bow before loneliness the way you once did. You stand upright in solitude as a new kind of peace. No running, no frantic search for noise, no rushing to fill an empty space. You begin to enjoy what you once hated: stillness, slowness, clarity, maturity. And then, one day, as you stand in front of the mirror and look into your own eyes, you see something you've never seen before: light. Not the light of blind hope, not the light of infatuation, but the light of someone who has walked through hell with their heart still clean, who has lost everything but did not lose their essence, who is knocked down but rose in a way no one expected. It is the light of the restored one, the light of the soul returned home, the light of someone no longer occupied by the narcissist on any level, the light of someone who knows that true love is not dissolving into another, but the meeting of two souls who do not need to use pain to keep each other. The restoration is not the journey of forgetting them. Restoration is a journey of no longer needing them in any form. And when you reach this point, you are no longer the version of you who loved them. You are the version who walks through the darkness, stepped out the other side, and carries something they will never have: awareness, depth, and a sovereign heart. This is the gift that dreams have led you to. This is the end of one chapter and the beginning of an entirely new life. Not a life without them, but a life no longer defined by them. You have come home, you have been restored, and from here on, every dream belongs to you, no longer to any shadow that once clung to your heart. In the end, your journey is not a journey of escaping a person, it is a journey of escaping the version of yourself that was split apart by pain, illusion, fear, and the shadow elements the narcissist touched too deeply. When you first entered the dream, you entered with the innocence of the heart. When you stayed in the dream too long, you stayed out of unconscious dependence. And when you repeated the dream over and over, you repeated it because your soul was trying to turn a key in a door that had long been locked. But today, after moving through all the layers of the Jungian unconscious, projection, archetypal possession, psychic fragmentation, collapse of the image, rebirth of the ego, and finally restoration, you are no longer standing in front of the old door. You have passed through it. You have walked into the territory the dream once kept you from reaching, the territory of free consciousness. The 7-point framework. You no longer need them in your dreams to understand the lesson. You no longer need their darkness to find your own light. You no longer need their disappearance to learn how to stand alone. You no longer need the love they gave at the beginning to prove you are worthy. The dream about them ends, not because you forgot, but because your soul has taken back the role of the guide. No archetype is possessing you anymore. No idealized image is steering you anymore. No unconscious vortex is dragging you back to the place that once shattered you. You have become what Jung called the one who walks through the darkness without being swallowed by it. And the most beautiful part of this ending is this: you do not carry hatred, you do not carry expectation, you do not carry wounds that still demand an explanation, you do not carry beautiful memories like a poisonous drug, you do not carry the fear of abandonment. You carry only yourself, whole, clear, mature, sovereign. This is individuation, the final destination of the soul's journey, a destination no one can hand to you, no one can lead you to, no one can walk with you into, and no one can experience on your behalf. You have reached the point where the dream no longer needs to use their face to teach you anything. From here on, if dreams return, they return for you, not for them. They will wear the face of the future, not of the wound. They will open the door of consciousness, not of obsession. They no longer wake up to run from your dreams. You wake up to live the life you were never free enough to live before. And that is the real victory. Not victory over them, not victory over pain, but victory over yourself. The self that was once swept away, broken, torn, lost, and has now returned with the strength of a soul that knows the way home. The door of dreams closes. The door of consciousness opens, and you step through without trembling, without expectation, without regret, carrying only one thing: freedom.